Okay, we are up. Give me just a second. Get my sports alerts app going, and then we'll begin. In the meantime, what's up? Baseball, hoops, and hockey fans. Big Al here on this Monday, April 10th, 2023. And it's time for another standings check, as we will be taking a look at the Major League Baseball standings for the first time here in the 2023 season. We'll also take a look at the final NBA regular season standings and the teams that made the playoffs. And we'll also update the NHL standings and the playoff race in that league coming up here. And these are through April 9th, 2023. So we're going to get started with our first look at the Major League Baseball standings, starting off with the American League's Eastern Division, led by baseball's only undefeated team, and that's the Tampa Bay Rays with a 9-0 record. In second, you have the New York Yankees at 6-3. They are 3 games out. The Toronto Blue Jays are in third place with a 6-4 record, 3.5 games behind the Rays. In fourth place are the Boston Red Sox, 5-4, 4 games out. They've won 3 in a row. Tampa Bay, by the way, won all 9 of their games to start the season. And in last place are the Baltimore Orioles at 4-5. They are 5 games behind Tampa. Boston, I don't think I mentioned them. They were 4 games out of first. All right. The American League Central is presently led by the Minnesota Twins at 6-3. Not too far behind them are the Cleveland Guardians at 6-4, just a half game out. Then you have the third place Chicago White Sox, 4-6, and 2.5 games out. Fourth place are the Kansas City Royals at 3-7, 3.5 games out. And in fifth place, the Detroit Tigers, 2-7, and 4 games out. And they've dropped 4 games in a row. They haven't won since taking that series in Houston against the defending World Series champs. Speaking of which, that brings us to the American League West, where there's a tie for first place with both the Los Angeles Angels and the Texas Rangers, both sitting at 5-4. Meanwhile, the aforementioned Houston Astros, the reigning World Series champions, and the Seattle Mariners are tied for third at 4-6. And sitting in last place in the West are the Oakland Athletics at 2-7. Over to the National League, where the Atlanta Braves own a 6-4 record and leads the NL East. They have lost 3 straight games. They had a rough weekend against the Padres. That's then followed by the New York Mets at 5-5, just a game out. In third place, you have the Miami Marlins at 4-6, 2 games out. In fourth place are the Philadelphia Phillies at 3-6, 2.5 games behind Atlanta. And sitting in their rightful spot in last place are the Washington Nationals, 3-7, 3 games behind the Braves. The National League Central is led by the Milwaukee Brewers, 7-2 record. In second place are the Pittsburgh Pirates, off to a surprisingly good start at 6-3, just 1 game behind the Brew Crew. Both the Chicago Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds are tied for third at 4-4, both 2.5 games out of first. And the St. Louis Cardinals round out the Central with a 3-6 record. They are 4 games behind Milwaukee. And talk about teams off to surprisingly good starts. The Arizona Diamondbacks find themselves in a first place tie with the San Diego Padres atop the NL West at 6-4, and both are riding 3-game win streaks. The LA Dodgers are in third place at 5-5, 1 game out. The San Francisco Giants are 4-5, 1.5 games out. And the Colorado Rockies are in last place, 4-6, 2 games out. So that's your first look at the MLB standings. Now let's take a look at the final NBA standings for the 2022-2023 regular season. All right. There it is. Okay. Starting things off in the Eastern Conference. The Boston Celtics won the Atlantic Division Championship and will go in as the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Finishing, in fact, they will go in as the number 2 seed. My mistake. They finished the regular season at 57-25, which is a .695 winning percentage. 8-2 over their final 10 games, including 3 straight wins. In second place are the Philadelphia 76ers, 54-28, .659 winning percentage, 3 games behind the Celtics, 5-5 in their last 10, including 2 straight wins. Third place are the New York Knicks, 47-35, .573 winning percentage, 10 games behind the Celtics, 5-5 over their last 10, including 2 straight losses. In fourth place are the Brooklyn Nets at 45-37, .549 winning percentage, 12 games behind the Celtics, 6-4 in their last 10, including a loss in their final game of the season. And in last place, and appearing to be making it to the play-in tournament, are the Toronto Raptors, 41-41, .500 winning percentage, 16 games behind Boston, 6-4 in their last 10 games, including a win in their final game of the year. All right. The Central Division holds the Eastern Conference's top seed, and that's the Milwaukee Bucks at 58-24, .707 winning percentage, 6-4 in their last 10 games, including 2 straight losses. So this would make the Bucks the best team in the NBA record-wise. A distant second place are the Cleveland Cavaliers, 51-31, .622 winning percentage, 7 games behind Milwaukee, 7-3 in their last 10, including a loss in their final game of the season. In third place, and it looks like they're into the play-in tournament as well, are the Chicago Bulls, 40-42, .488 winning percentage, 18 games behind the Bucks, 6-4 in their last 10 games, including back-to-back wins to close out the regular season. Eliminated from the playoffs in fourth place are the Indiana Pacers, 35-47, .427 winning percentage, 23 games behind the Bucks, 3-7 in their last 10 games, including a win in their final game of the year. Last place in the Central, and more than likely walking away with the number 1 pick in this summer's draft, are the Detroit Pistons. 17-65, .207 win percentage. They finish a whopping 41 games behind Milwaukee in the Central Division. 1-9 in their last 10 games, including a loss in their final game. All right, the Miami Heat, crowned champions of the Southeast Division, 44-38, .537 winning percentage, 6-4 over their last 10 games, including a win in their final regular season game. So they're getting set for the playoffs. Finishing second and headed perhaps to the play-in tournament are the Atlanta Hawks. 41-41, 500 winning percentage, 3 games behind the Heat. 5-5 in their last 10 games, including 2 straight losses. In third place and eliminated from the playoffs, the Washington Wizards, 35-47, 427 winning percentage, 9 games behind Miami, 3-7 in their last 10, including a loss in their final game. Fourth place and eliminated are the Orlando Magic, 34-48, 415 win percentage, 10 games behind Miami, 5-5 over their last 10 games, including 4 straight losses to finish out the year. And finishing last place in the Southeast, also eliminated from the playoffs, the Charlotte Hornets. 27-55, 329 winning percentage, 17 games behind the Heat. 5-5 over their final 10 games, including a victory in their season finale. Over to the Western Conference. All right, you got the Memphis Grizzlies at 51-31 and champions of the Southwest Division. 51-31 equals a 622 winning percentage. 6-4 over their last 10 games, including a loss in their season finale. Finishing second place and getting into the play-in tournament in the Western Conference are the New Orleans Pelicans. 42-40, 512 win percentage. They finished 9 games behind the Grizzlies, 7-3 in their last 10 games, including a loss in their season finale. Finishing third place. Finishing third place and eliminated from the playoffs are the Luka Doncic-led Dallas Mavericks. 38-44, 463 winning percentage. 13 games behind Memphis. Only 2-8 in their last 10 games, including 2 straight losses. And tied for fourth place, or last place, if you will, and both eliminated from the playoffs, are the Houston Rockets and San Antonio Spurs, both finishing at 22-60, both with a win percentage of 268, and both finishing a whopping 29 games behind Memphis. Houston was 4-6 in their last 10 games, and they finished the season strong with 3 straight wins. San Antonio is 3-7 in their last 10, including a victory in their season finale. All right, the number 1 overall seed in the Western Conference are the Northwest Division champion Denver Nuggets at 53-29, 646 winning percentage, 5-5 in their last 10 games, including a victory in their final game of the year. In second place and headed to the play-in tournament are the Minnesota Timberwolves. 42-40, 512 winning percentage, 11 games behind Denver, 7-3 in their last 10, including 3 straight wins. In third place and likely headed to the play-in tournament are the Oklahoma City Thunder. 40-42, 488 winning percentage, 13 games behind the Nuggets, 4-6 in their previous 10 games, including 2 straight wins. In fourth place are the Utah Jazz, eliminated from contention. 37-45, 451 winning percentage. 16 games behind Denver, 2-8 in their last 10 games, including a loss in their season finale. And falling into last place In the Northwest are the Portland Trailblazers at 33-49, 402 winning percentage, 20 games behind the Nuggets, 1-9 in their last 10 games, and man, they were ice cold down the stretch, losing their final 4 games of the season. All right, on to the Pacific Division, won by the Sacramento Kings, 48-34, 585 winning percentage. 5-5 in their last 10 games, but they're kind of scuffling going into the playoffs, finishing the regular season on a 3-game losing streak. In second place are the Phoenix Suns, 45-37, 549 winning percentage, 3 games behind Sacramento, 7-3 over their last 10 games, including 2 straight losses. Tied for third are the Los Angeles Clippers and the defending NBA champs, the Golden State Warriors, both finishing 44-38, 537 win percentage for both. 4 games behind the Kings. LA finished 6-4 in their last 10. Golden State 8-2 in their last 10, and both finished the regular season with 3-game winning streaks. And in last place and headed to the play-in tournament are the Los Angeles Lakers. 43-39, 524 winning percentage, 5 games behind the Kings. 8-2 in their last 10, including 2 straight wins. So looking at the final playoff race in the NBA, as the regular season is now over. There we go. All right, in the East, the Milwaukee Bucks are the top seed in the Eastern Conference at 58-24. The Boston Celtics are the 2 seed at 57-25. The 3 seed is the Philadelphia 76ers at 54-28. The number 4 seed in the East are the Cleveland Cavaliers, 51-31. The number 5 seed are the New York Knicks at 47-35. And the number 6 seed are the Brooklyn Nets at 45-37. So judging by this, Brooklyn will play Philadelphia in the first round of the playoffs, while New York plays Cleveland. And the 4 teams that will make the play-in tournament are the Miami Heat. Despite them being the Southeast Division champions, they go in as the number 7 seed with a 44-38 record. The Hawks and Raptors are tied, both at 41-41. The head-to-head tiebreaker would go to Atlanta, which would make the Hawks the number 8 seed and the Raptors the number 9 seed, while the Chicago Bulls lock up the 10th and final spot with their 40-42 record. Both Indiana and Washington at 35-47 would finish 5 games out. Orlando at 34-48 would be 6 games out. Charlotte at 27-55 would be 13 games out. And Detroit, with the NBA's worst record, 17-65, they would sit 23 games out of the playoffs. As for the Western Conference, the top seed there will be the Denver Nuggets at 53-29. Number 2 is the Memphis Grizzlies at 51-31. The number 3 seed is the Sacramento Kings, 48-34. The number 4 seed in the West will be the Phoenix Suns, 45-37. Then you've got both the Clippers and Warriors tied at 44-38. Tiebreaker goes to Los Angeles. That would put the Clippers in as the number 5 seed, and they will face the Suns in the first round, while Golden State drops to the 6th seed, and they will face the Sacramento Kings in the opening round. The four teams that make the play-in tournament are the Los Angeles Lakers at 43 and 39. They're the 7th seed. The Minnesota Timberwolves and New Orleans Pelicans, both at 42 and 40. The tiebreaker would go to Minnesota, putting them at number 8 and New Orleans at number 9. And the Oklahoma City Thunder as the 10th and final team in the West at 40 and 42. Dallas at 38 and 44 would be 2 games out. Utah at 37 and 45 would be 3 games out. Portland at 33 and 49 would be 7 games out. While both Houston and San Antonio at 22 and 60 each would sit 18 games out of the playoffs. So that's a look at the final regular season standings in the NBA. Now let's take a look at the NHL, who will be wrapping up their regular season later this week. Kicking things off in the Atlantic Division of the Eastern Conference, led by the Boston Bruins, we've now set a National Hockey League record for wins in a season. 63, 12, and 5 record through 80 games. That's 131 points with 59 wins in regulation or overtime. They're off to the playoffs, and they will be the top seed in the Eastern Conference. In second place are the playoff-bound Toronto Maple Leafs. 79 games played, 47, 21, and 11 for 105 points. And 46 wins in regulation or overtime. In third place and also headed to the playoffs are the Tampa Bay Lightning. 80 games played, 45, 29, and 6 for 96 points and 42 wins in regulation or overtime. In fourth place and fighting for one of the wild card spots in the East are the Florida Panthers. 80 games played, 42, 31, and 7 for 91 points and 40 wins in regulation or overtime. In fifth place, still mathematically alive for the playoffs, but on life support at this point, the Buffalo Sabres. 78 games played, 39, 32, and 7, 85 points, 37 wins in regulation or overtime. And the bottom 3 teams in this division are all eliminated from contention. And that includes the 6th place Ottawa Senators, 80 games played, 38, 35, and 7, 83 points, 36 wins in regulation or overtime. The 7th place Detroit Red Wings, 79 games played, 35, 34, and 10, 80 points, and 32 wins in regulation or overtime. And the 8th place Montreal Canadiens, 80 games played, 31, 43, and 6 for 68 points and 26 wins in regulation or overtime. Okay. As we're now into the final week of the NHL's regular season, the Metropolitan Division title is still up for grabs. The Carolina Hurricanes still leads the division, 79 games played and a record of 50, 20, and 9 for 109 points and 46 wins in regulation or overtime. They're headed to the playoffs. In second place are the New Jersey Devils, 80 games played, 50, 22, and 8 for 108 points and 48 wins in regulation or overtime. They too are headed to the playoffs, as are the third place New York Rangers. 80 games played, 47, 21, and 12, 106 points, 43 wins in regulation or overtime. So you got a 3-team race for the division title here in the Metro Division. In fourth place and fighting for a wild card spot are the New York Islanders. 80 games played, 41, 30, and 9 for 91 points, 40 wins in regulation or overtime. In fifth place, and also battling for one of the two wild card spots, are the Pittsburgh Penguins. 80 games played, 40, 30, and 10, 90 points, 39 wins in regulation or overtime. And just like in the Atlantic Division, the bottom three teams in the Metro are also eliminated from playoff contention, including the sixth place Washington Capitals. 79 games played, 34, 36, and 9 for 77 points, and 32 wins in regulation or overtime. The seventh place Philadelphia Flyers, 80 games played, 29, 38, and 13 for 71 points, and 27 wins in regulation or overtime. And the eighth place Columbus Blue Jackets, 79 games played, 24, 47, and 8 for 56 points, and 23 wins in regulation or overtime. Over to the Western Conference, where you've got a battle for the division title there as well. Leading the Central Division right now are the Colorado Avalanche, the reigning Stanley Cup champions. 79 games played, 49, 24, and 6 for 104 points, and 43 wins in regulation or overtime. In second place are the Dallas Stars. 79 games played, 44, 21, and 14 for 102 points, and 40 wins in regulation or overtime. And in third place are the Minnesota Wild. 79 games played, 45, 24, and 10 for an even 100 points, and 38 wins in regulation or overtime. All three teams are going to the playoffs. In fourth place, battling for one of the two wild card spots in the West, are the Winnipeg Jets. 79 games played, 44, 32, and 3, 91 points, 43 wins in regulation or overtime. In fifth place, and also battling for a wild card spot, are the Nashville Predators. 79 games played, 40, 31, and 8, 88 points, 35 wins in regulation or overtime. The sixth place St. Louis Blues are eliminated from playoff contention. 80 games played, 37, 36, and 7, 81 points, 34 wins in regulation or overtime. The seventh place Arizona Coyotes are also eliminated. 80 games played, 28, 39, and 13 for 69 points, 25 wins in regulation or overtime. In eighth place are the Chicago Blackhawks, also eliminated from the playoffs. 79 games played, 25, 48, and 6 for 56 points, and 23 wins in regulation or overtime. And we've got a three-team race atop the Pacific Division with the Vegas Golden Knights, Edmonton Oilers, and Los Angeles Kings. Well, it's really a two-team race. LA's pretty much played themselves out of the division title. So it's going to come down to Vegas or Edmonton, whoever wins this division. Vegas is currently leading the Pacific, 80 games played, 49, 22, and 9, 107 points, 44 wins in regulation or overtime. Edmonton is in second place, a very close second. 80 games played, 48, 29, 105 points, 48 wins in regulation or overtime. In third place, you've got the Los Angeles Kings. Again, they are out of the running for the division title. And they are more than likely will finish third or fourth in this division. 80 games played, 45, 25, and 10 for an even 100 points, 39 wins in regulation or overtime. In fourth place, you've got the Seattle Kraken. 79 games played, 45, 26, and 8, 98 points, 45 wins in regulation or overtime. And the top 4 teams in this division are all going to the playoffs. In 5th place and still alive in the wild card race, as there is one spot left to be claimed, and that's the Calgary Flames. 80 games played, 37, 27, and 16, 90 points, 35 wins in regulation or overtime. Bottom 3 in this division eliminated as well. That includes the 6th place Vancouver Canucks. 79 games played, 36, 36, and 7 for 79 points, 30 wins in regulation or overtime. This also includes the 7th place San Jose Sharks, 79 games played, 22, 41, and 16 for 60 points, and 21 wins in regulation or overtime. And finally, you have the last place Anaheim Ducks. 80 games played, 23, 45, and 12 for 58 points, and 20 wins in regulation or overtime. Okay. So with a few days left in the regular season, there are still the 2 wild card spots to be handed out in the Eastern Conference. Okay, there are still the 2 wild card spots to be handed out in the Eastern Conference, and only 1 wild card spot left in the West. So as it sits, the top 3 in the Atlantic Division are all going to the playoffs. Boston with 131 points, Toronto with 105, and Tampa Bay with 96. The top 3 in the Metropolitan Division are also going to the playoffs. Carolina with 109 points, New Jersey with 108, and the New York Rangers with 106. And all 3 teams are battling for the division title there. All right. The top 3 teams in the Central Division are all playoff bound as well. Colorado with 104 points, Dallas with 102, and Minnesota with 100. And the top 3 teams in the Pacific, based on points, would be Vegas with 107, Edmonton with 105, and Los Angeles with 100. They're all into the playoffs, as are Seattle with 98 points. Now looking at the wild card races, Florida and the New York Islanders are tied for the 2 wild card spots. Both have played 80 games. Both have 91 points and 40 wins in regulation or overtime. Florida, however, has one more overall win than the Islanders, so that puts Florida in the number 1 wild card spot and bumps the Islanders to 2nd. Okay, Pittsburgh with 90 points is just a point out and 2 games left. And in Buffalo has 4 games left. They are 6 points out. Well, like I said, their playoff chances are on life support right now. We know Seattle has clinched a playoff spot. They're in as one of the wild card teams for now at 98 points, but they could be a top 3 team. Winnipeg is currently the 2 wild card in the West with 91 points. Calgary is only a point out with 2 games left. Nashville is 3 points out with 3 games left. And then everyone else is eliminated. In the East, Ottawa is 8 points out. Detroit is 11 points out. Washington is 14 points out. Philadelphia, 20 points out. Montreal, 23 points out. And Columbus, 35 points out. While out west, St. Louis would sit 10 points out. Vancouver 12 points out. Arizona 22 points out. San Jose 31 points out. Anaheim 33 points out. And Chicago 35 points out. Okay, that is a NHL and Major League Baseball. Now, as for what's happening in the world of sports on this Monday, April 10th, let's take a look at Major League Baseball, and we have one game that will be starting here in about an hour and a half. The Chicago White Sox visit the Minnesota Twins. That's Cease versus Maeda. That game is at 2:10 Eastern Time. And they're playing at Target Field in Minneapolis. At 6:10 Eastern Time, you have the Yankees at the Guardians. Herman versus Bieber. And that's at Progressive Field in Cleveland. The A's visit the Orioles at Camden Yards. Sears versus Gibson. That game is at 6:35 Eastern Time, as is the Astros at the Pirates. Valdez versus Contreras. That's at 6:35 Eastern from PNC Park. 5 minutes later, you have a couple games getting underway at 6:40 Eastern Time. The Marlins at the Phillies. Alcantara versus Strom. And that's at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. Meanwhile, down at Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, you have the Red Sox at the Rays. Pavetta versus Beeks. And that's also at 6:40 Eastern Time. At 7:10 Eastern Time, you've got the Padres at the Mets. Darvish versus Scherzer from Citi Field. 10 minutes later at Truist Park in Atlanta, the Braves host the Reds. That's Ashcraft for Cincinnati and Elder for Atlanta. That's at 7:20 Eastern Time. 20 minutes later at 7:40 Eastern Time in the friendly confines of Wrigley Field, it's the Mariners and the Cubs. Castillo versus Smiley. Then at 8:05 Eastern Time, it's the Royals at the Rangers. Greinke versus Haney. That's down at Globe Life Park in Arlington. Meanwhile, at Coors Field in Denver, at 8:40 Eastern Time, it's the Cardinals at the Rockies. Mets versus Marquez. At 9:30 Eastern Time from Angel Stadium in Anaheim, the Angels will be hosting the Nationals. It's Patrick Corbin on the mound for Washington versus Suarez for the Halos. Couple minutes after that at 9:40 Eastern Time from Chase Field here in Phoenix, it's the Brewers at the Diamondbacks. Wade Miley, the former Diamondback, will pitch for Milwaukee against Arizona's Zach Gallen. And again, that's at 9:40 Eastern Time. Final game of the night is at 9:45 Eastern Time from Oracle Park. It's the Dodgers and the Giants, a rivalry as old as time. Urias is the starting pitcher for LA. Webb is the starter for San Francisco. And that again is at 9:45 Eastern Time. Now, jumping over to the NHL scoreboard or the NHL schedule, we got quite a few games on the slate tonight. The Buffalo Sabres, fighting for their playoff lives, visit the New York Rangers at MSG. That game goes at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, as do the Carolina Hurricanes at the Ottawa Senators, the New York Islanders at the Washington Capitals, the Toronto Maple Leafs at the Florida Panthers, and the San Jose Sharks at the Winnipeg Jets. All 5 of those games will face off at 7 o'clock Eastern time. In fact, you have 6 games that'll face off at 7 o'clock Eastern time, as the Detroit Red Wings will play their final home game of the season, hosting the playoff-bound Dallas Stars. So again, that's the Sabres at the Rangers, Hurricanes at the Sabres, or Hurricanes at the Senators, rather, Islanders at the Capitals, Maple Leafs and Panthers, Sharks and Jets, and the Stars and Red Wings, all facing off at 7 p.m. Eastern time. The next game doesn't start until 9 p.m. Eastern. And that's the Minnesota Wild at the Chicago Blackhawks. At 9:30, it's the Nashville Predators visiting the Calgary Flames. Then at 10 p.m. Eastern, it's the Seattle Kraken or visiting the Arizona Coyotes. And the final game of the night is at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, as the Los Angeles Kings host the Vancouver Canucks. All right, so there it is, folks. A look at the Major League Baseball, NBA, and NHL standings through April 9th. All right, so next week, not only will we be looking at the Major League Baseball standings, we will also have the final NHL standings for 2022 and 2023. So make sure you join me next week for that. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching and play ball. Peace out.